Tailgate. And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fornelli. That's Danny Kanell. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and everywhere you get your podcasts on demand. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and come and join us in the chat, aka the Cover 3 Tailgate, where, among other topics, we've got some questions coming up. I'm going to get to you, Michael, in just a second. Not that, Michael. We will, here on this Wednesday, be doing a little bit of Monday. We'll react to the new AP Top 25 in Poll Assassin. We've got some injury availability updates, but it is a Wednesday. We've got to get you set for the week ahead. That means we are going to be doing big game breakdown. Oklahoma, Michigan, some of the Big Ten action that we talked about a little bit on Tuesday's CBS Sports Network show. Kansas, Missouri, Baylor-SMU, also got our eyes elsewhere. Very excited to get into those matchups here. But Danny, I think this is a good one for you because you just shared the set with him. Michael jumped in the tailgate about an hour and a half before we got started and said, Cover 3, any thoughts to A.J. McCarron's comments on Alabama's NIL operation this past week? For context, AJ insinuated that his understanding is that this Alabama NIL budget is not close to the, $40 million, which is your rev share plus NIL, that $40 million number that whether it's Mike Gundy, whoever's throwing it out, that seems to be the new $20 million. Last year it was Ohio State, the $20 million roster, Texas and the $20 million roster. Danny, any thoughts here on McCarron's analysis of where Alabama's NIL is?
So if I remember correctly, I don't think he insinuated. He said, I know for a fact.
Yeah, I was going to give him a little bit of wiggle room on this.
Right. No. He said, I know for a fact. But what have we heard on here? Even Bud has been all over this for a while. Like there's no more Saban discount where players would go there for less, even pre-NIL era. That players would go there because they trust the NFL development and, Saban, you're going to compete for national championships. So I don't think it's a secret. I don't think he made it up out of thin air. I do think this might be a program that does not have the luxury, like a lot of programs that don't have that kind of signature billionaire backer. Now they've got resources and I think they could pull from a fanatical fan base if they had to. But even we heard Nick Saban at the end, saying the need for more money. So I don't think it's shocking at all. I think it's factual what he's talking about. And I think that's going to be. So I also thought AJ crushed it. Thought he was great on our coverage. Thought he did a great job. But, it's funny because when Saban retired, I put out a tweet and I was like, congrats to Nick Saban. But he got out at exactly the right time. Like I thought it was genius for him to retire when he did because he wouldn't have the advantage that he had for his whole tenure there. And a lot of people thought it was taking shots at Saban. I just thought it was fact that he was getting out at exactly the right time. Players are changing, player movement, and without the edge, you're like Bama fans have to reset their expectations of what this program is going to be. I know they don't want to hear that, but the days of going 12-0 and 11-1 every single year, those are done. Not only for Bama, but I think for everybody. But Bama, I think, is going to have a really hard time getting used to that.
I'm going to pass around a collection plate for Alabama and their fans. I feel like, we need to help them out in this time of need. They lost a game. They've lost a few games recently, like half of their games over the last 8 or 10. I worry for them. I don't know. It's lame to me that now every time a team loses, the excuse is we don't have as much money as the other team. Like, and it's predictable because that's what it's always. There's always got to be a boogeyman to explain why your team lost. And the reason Alabama lost is because they're broke. Because we all know Florida State is absolutely flush with cash these days. That's why they've been suing it like crazy to get the hell out of the ACC. That's why they were considering getting private equity, and they were talking, the Saudi Knowles, because they're just flush. That's why they won the game. its timing is crazy because it's the first game of the season. It was one of the biggest games of the weekend. But the fact of the matter is, at the end of the year, Florida State could be 10-2 and in the college football playoff. And we're looking back and it's like, wow, Alabama lost on the road to a playoff team. But we're treating it as if the sky is falling, the dynasty is dead. Kalen DeBoer has absolutely no idea how to coach. Alabama's broke. There is no hope. There is no future. Shutter the program.
So Nick Saban actually did this. It just wasn't after a loss. It was after Texas A&M splashed with a big recruiting class. And Nick Saban got up in front of all those Alabama boosters and started saying, well, Texas A&M, they got all that money. They bought that class. I agree with you, Tom. Crying poor after losses is the lamest thing in college football right now. But I did think it was interesting that this has happened at Alabama before. The idea that Alabama fans are disappointed with results, and the response is, hey, guys, get your money up. And it was just last time it was a recruiting cycle, so the impact wasn't as significant, in my opinion, as an obvious season opening loss in front of everybody. But yeah, this is an Alabama program that has super, super high expectations, generational expectations. And now, it's going to have to figure out a way to live in the new world. Now, will Kalen DeBoer be leading this program into the new world? That probably depends on what's going to happen over the course of the next 8-9 weeks. But this is a new spot for Alabama. We have not seen them wriggle like this. We have not seen them sweat like this in 20 years. So it's going to be something that I think is going to be very interesting for newer college football fans to get used to, newer college football fans who've just gotten used to Alabama fans perhaps being over the top, but always with something to show for it, to celebrate. Interesting season ahead in Tuscaloosa.
You mentioned that they're sweating. Here's a question for you guys, and maybe it's a better question for Gary and Norlander. Should Nate Oates be sweating? Because if Alabama football is losing and they're crying that they're poor, how much longer do we go until it's like, well, we're giving too much money to the basketball program?
I have a feeling that Nate Oates, with the right call, might look around and be like, uh-oh. They're about to line all this up for the football program. Might be time to go. But anyway,
if you're an Alabama fan, are you not willing to sacrifice your basketball team so that your football team can be in the playoff and winning 10 plus games every single year?
They don't talk about a Final Four appearance at all.
That's what I'm saying. It's like they'd be like, all right, see you guys. It's fun for a couple years, but we'd rather win football games.
Yeah. But that is definitely a question that we can give to our friends Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander over there on the Eye on College Basketball podcast. All right. Normally on Mondays, we get to spend a little bit of time looking at the new college football rankings, but the new AP Top 25 came out on Tuesday. So let's talk to our friends, the Poll Assassin. Speaking of Poll Assassin, Texas displaced as the number 1 team in the country. That is taken over by Ohio State. I will say, we had it as a little bit of an icebreaker question for Tuesday's CBS Sports Network show. I did not think it would be as heavy. 55 first place votes going to the Buckeyes. That means that a significant amount of voters who had Penn State number 1 flipped to Ohio State, even though Penn State, outside of allowing a touchdown to mess up an under, I mean, what did Penn State do wrong? Yeah. Anyway,
they played Nevada.
Heaven forbid. Danny, as you look up and down the top 25, anything that we sounded like we were all in on Ohio State. Anything stand out in terms of the movement up or down?
So there's a couple things. One, I think they got it wrong. I wish voters would be more willing to forget preseason expectations, forget preseason rankings, and just look at who was the most impressive of the weekend, who had the most impressive win. And I thought that was LSU. I thought LSU should be the number 1 team in the country. And it's not like but Ohio State fans, they were like, well, how could you say that? We beat the number 1 team in the country. I'm like, well, yeah, but first of all, you did it at home. LSU had their win on the road versus number 4 team in the country. And how do we know Texas, like, they don't look like the number 1 team in the country anymore? And granted, you did win that game. And I don't think you should be outside. I had them at number 2. I don't think you should be completely disrespected. But if you're supposed to just forget everything you saw and just go with what you saw on the field, I thought LSU should have been number 1. And they only received, what, 3?
3. So I was going to say,
spots?
3 voters agree with you.
Right. Which isn't, in my opinion, isn't enough. I thought there should have been more people that should have been, given credit for that. So again, it's week 2. It doesn't mean that much perception-wise, but that was just something that kind of bothers me. I think your ranking should be incredibly volatile, throughout the first month of the season when we're still gathering information, because we didn't know anything about any of these teams. Now that we know a little bit more, I thought LSU looked better in that performance on the road. So that was kind of the thing at the top that kind of jumped out to me and sort of bothers me that the AP voters aren't willing to forget what they thought in the preseason. Because I'm sure there are a lot that had Ohio State at 2, and they were like, well, I'm going to bump them up 1. And it doesn't make much sense to me the way that the formula works.
I just had a moment of clarity. Danny's arguing for LSU, but it's not SEC bias.
Right.
It's ACC bias.
Yeah.
You're arguing that beating
Clemson
is more impressive than beating Texas. And I am here to tell you that at the end of the year, Clemson will not be a better football team than Texas. They just won't be.
I'll take a side bet.
Record-wise
or head-to-head?
Just period. They're not a better
team.
Side
bet.
It's talked about this all off season. Like, we got into the argument on the TV show last month, where I said that there were 8 teams that could win it, and Clemson and Miami weren't, because Clemson's just not a national title contender, because they can't beat elite teams. And that's exactly what happened this weekend. They lost at home to a team that's on the same level as they are. Texas lost on the road to Ohio State while outplaying Ohio State in most areas. So I have no problem with Ohio State being number 1. They have the most impressive win of the season so far. They should be number 1. If you want to argue LSU should be ahead of Penn State, that's fine, because Penn State, listen, they killed Nevada, but it was Nevada. LSU went on the road and beat Clemson, and I am comfortable saying Clemson is better than Nevada. In fact, if Clemson played Nevada, they would run up the score, run up Cade Klubnik's stats, and make you think he's good at playing football. But to your point,
good at playing football.
Yeah, I know. I know that's just being hyperbolic for fun. But like,
Mike Wilbon's very disappointed in you.
Yeah. To your point, hey, you know what? That's the first time Wilbon has said something that I've agreed with in like 15 years. So thank you, Mike. To your point, though, about them throwing out preseason expectations, like, the poll isn't perfect in my eyes. I'd move different things, but I do think that we see, if we look closer, that a lot of people are taking that approach, and they are kind of starting fresh, because Notre Dame was left off of 3 ballots entirely. Wow. Alabama fell all the way to 21, and they were left off of 14 ballots. So, like, a lot of these teams that lost in these big games were punished by a lot of the voters by just being left off the top 25 and them putting other teams in their place. For now, they'll probably be back as soon as they win games. Clemson was on everybody's ballot for some reason and no lower than 17th. Why Clemson gets to stay no lower than 17th while Notre Dame is off of 3 ballots, I don't know, but that's the way it works.
I would agree with that.
Really? They lost on the road to Miami?
No, I would agree with that. I think that was a good loss for Notre Dame.
I thought Notre Dame was more impressive than Clemson was.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't really have any outstanding problems with anything we see. There are some individual votes that I'm just kind of like eyebrow raising. Like, one person still has Texas at number 3, and I'm just kind of like, all right, you're just not really paying, you're just a little too in love with your own thoughts. But other than that, there's nothing that truly stands out. I will say, it is strange to me that, based on what we've seen so far, that, well, no, actually, no, they're lower than I thought. I thought Kansas State got more votes than that, but they didn't. All right, never mind.
So I wish Utah was higher. I just think that no one watched it.
They were left off of 28 ballots.
Yeah, Utah was checking in at like number Utah, I think, was like 26 in the preseason balloting, and they only move up, or 27. They only move up to 25. That is not in line with the statement that was made. I just think that 11 p.m. Eastern time kickoff, No one saw how clinical that was. Tom, no one saw that. What was it, a 10-minute drive?
Mm-hmm.
They just put that thing in park, and they were like, okay, we've been beaten up on these guys enough. Let's get this thing to triple zeros. They could have scored 50 in that game if they really wanted to.
And I'm really happy you brought it up, because this is like a poster case of like West Coast bias and then like Big 12 bias. You know what I mean? In that Utah could appear as high as number 7 on a ballot in Sam McEwen's. They also received votes for 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th. Like they were getting top 15 ballots. Yeah. But then you don't even show up on 28 ballots. That tells me that you were not watched, because you were the late night game on Saturday. So everybody else was either writing their stories, if they are actually writing members of the college football media, which again, a lot of the people in this poll aren't. They're like radio hosts, or they're just whatever. But that tells me you actually aren't watching college football, and yet you are voting in one of the polls that we use to argue about it.
I got another team that kind of bothered me. They didn't show up. USF. Like everybody thought Boise State was a top 25 team, and they, 34-7 in that second half, they completely dominated. That defense showed up. I would have liked to see USF got a little bit more credit for that win. I thought it was one of the better wins from a score, dominating the game. I thought they should have showed up in this poll somewhere. And then it's like, who do you take out? I think there's a couple teams I think I would at least have them considered over.
Yeah, only 7 people included the Bulls on their ballot this week.
Wow.
7. And that was like a spotlight game. So it's not like there was no excuse for people not to have seen that. 58 voters left them off entirely.
Let's see. I don't know if it's posted yet. Do you want me to break a little news about the CBS Sports 136?
I do.
Danny Kanell, you'll be happy to hear, LSU number 2 in the CBS Sports 136.
Nice.
Penn State checking in at number 3. We had USF was one of the biggest movers up. Let's see. USF moved up a total of 48 spots in the CBS Sports 136. Florida State up 28 spots to number 13. Tulane, also a big mover up. Boise State, Baylor, Alabama, and Kansas State among the biggest fallers week over week in the CBS Sports 136. Go ahead and check that out, cbssports.com. Anything else from the rankings before we jump into Big Game Breakdown? All right. Coming up on the other side, every single Wednesday, we like to take you inside the matchup, and we do that with Big Game Breakdown and more. Next.
Name's Conrad Harrigan, family man. And if you cross my family, well, you'd better pray.
Mobland, new series streaming March 30th on Paramount Plus.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast. Thursdays are for locks, for the best bets against the spread, over-unders, and more. Now is when we go inside the matchup. We break it down. It's Big Game Breakdown. Now, when one of the biggest games of the week is one that we got to really dive into on the CBS Sports Network show on Tuesday, I always want to leave us a little bit of time when we don't have the constraints of linear television. So we got a good amount of time to look at Oklahoma, Michigan on the Tuesday show. Go check it out, youtube.com/cover3, or listen to it wherever you get your podcast. Gentlemen, any further notes or thoughts as we got a chance to maybe even get a second look at it?
Nothing really outstanding that we didn't discuss, but just to drive it home for anybody who didn't watch yesterday or listen, like my concerns for both teams are, Oklahoma's offensive line looked in the run game, looked pathetic against Illinois State. And now they're going up against Michigan. That's going to be a problem. And if you think back to last year, what was Oklahoma's offense's primary problem? It's offensive lines. At least through one game, it doesn't feel like the issues have been fixed. On the other side, Bryce Underwood played pretty well at home against New Mexico for a guy making his first start as a true freshman, but going on the road to face this Oklahoma defense, which did look every bit the billing of it during the offseason against Illinois State, it's a much different animal. So it'll be interesting to see how Underwood performs, whether or not they can get anything going in the passing game, how effective they will be able to run the ball against this Oklahoma defense, because I do think they're going to have have any kind of fighting chance, and whether or not the Sooners can get anything going on the ground. Because if they just rely on John Mateer, who makes some very, very fun plays, but he is a volatile player. There are ups and downs. He makes things happen, he misses things, and he also can panic a lot of the times and make mistakes, which is what we saw him do at Washington State when the competition level rose up a little bit. So if it's the John Mateer show and they can't run the ball, that is not going to be a good thing for Oklahoma's offense.
I will say this, and Chip and I are doing our picks later for the top 25, every game in the top 25. I think there's going to be a theme. I think you'll see better offensive performances from week 1 to week 2. There was a lot of sloppy play. A lot of schools across the country struggled. It's their first time versus live action. You know, they don't do scrimmages. You don't get a preseason. So just kind of in general, I think you'll see teams perform better. You hope you make that big step. But even talking to a couple coaches this week, they've all said, you know, we really hope to make a big step forward in week 1 to week 2.
What was the stat, Tom? The under was not.
In games last week, hold on. The under in all the games was 83 and 61 so far through week 1, and the games are finishing an average of 5.09 points below the listed total. It was a slop fest on offense last
week. That's Danny, that was my reaction too. Like, oh, we're almost like 6 points of under there. That's interesting. Markets, lines, odds makers, all those things will correct, of course, we imagine over time, unless of course it's the NFL where favorites are just blitzed everybody all through last fall, causing Wall Street issues. Anyway, Illinois, Duke, anything else there, Tom? I had to put, because we are a Luke Altmaier podcast, I had to recommend that we gave some Luke Altmaier promotion even here too. Any lingering thoughts about how the Fighting Illini stack up against Manny Diaz's crew?
Duke's an offense that got off to a really sloppy start against Elon, kind of started figuring things out in the second half, maybe ran it up a little bit, maybe just a touch. It's an interesting matchup. Illinois was without its starting right guard last week. I'm guessing because of disciplinary issues, he did not start in the game. I don't know if he'll be back for this one. If he is, I think that'll be big for Illinois. I think that their run game, like Illinois' offense against Western Illinois, was explosive and it scored points, but it also was kind of stop and start. Now, some of that might have just been they weren't really pulling out the full playbook and they were just kind of sticking to basics. But there was some stuff that needs to be ironed out. Defensively, I think they look really good. For Duke, Darian Mensah looked really good in the second half of that game. Defensively, I still am totally believing in that secondary, but like the linebackers in the front seven against Elon, to me, did not look especially great. So it'll be interesting to see how they hold up because, like, as we discussed on the show yesterday, I do expect Illinois to lean a bit more in the run on this game.
Big offensive line. JC Davis, let the rest of that crew get up there and mash. All right, let's turn our attention to some of the other games that we have not gotten a chance to dig in on. Kansas, we've gotten a chance to see Kansas twice already. Jayhawks 2-0 on the season. Now we get just a rivalry with so much hate. I mean, there is no respect here. It is not clean. It is not old-fashioned. This is like dirty, angry hate between Kansas and Missouri. Now, will it play out on the field? I don't know. These teams play each other enough to be able to have that, be instigated. But yeah, it'll get violent in the stands, and that palpable energy always seems to bleed over. Now, what do we know about Missouri? Missouri's 2-quarterback situation turned into a 1-quarterback situation real quickly due to Sam Horn's injury. Bo Pribula coming in and taking over. Scored a boatload of points against Central Arkansas, but it was Central Arkansas. Danny, what do we think we know about Missouri here that'll be important for this matchup?
I was kind of surprised at how much they ran Pribula. Like he was one of the leading rushers. He had 2 touchdowns. I was kind of, impressed with the way he moved the ball. We know what Jalen Daniels can do for Kansas, but operating in that system. And correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't Sam Horn supposed to be the mobile one? And he actually got hurt on a run, and that's kind of where they were leaning.
But all we saw from
Pribula's always been,
Yeah,
Okay,
Pribula
because he
was like,
ran Wildcat with Penn State last year. He would
yeah.
come in and do some Wildcat. So
Mm-hmm.
it does look like that offense might be a little bit more quarterback run heavy, which I know online this morning I saw some numbers about how much quarterback run is up across the board. So just something to keep an eye out for from that one. And they're going to have their hands full with Jalen Daniels running the football. So it's hard to get a whole lot from that. But I do think, having that type of performance, and sometimes I don't want to diminish anybody, but sometimes it's more of a distraction when you have two quarterbacks, like who's going to be the guy. And so if injury resolves that and you have to go with the guy, it can almost just be, all right, now we know what we're building our game plan around. We know who's going to be out there.
You mentioned the amount that they ran Pribula last week. To me, I mean, again, this is the first game of the season. Sam Horn got hurt. So who knows? Like, obviously, Eli was talking about before the game that the plan really was, they were going to play both. And then Horn gets hurt. Now Pribula's playing the full game. But if you look at the numbers, and again, it's just one game. Like, you're surprised that they ran Pribula so much against that team. Why were they running him so much? What don't they want him doing? What's the possible concern there? So it's an interesting spot, because my biggest concern about Pribula has been his ability as a passer, because I've seen him do the QB run game at Penn State. I knew he was fine with that. It's just if you're going to rely on him to be your starter. But we've also seen Mizzou, if they can go with Pribula and Ahmad Hardy and just kind of really lean into their rushing attack to try to, control the ball, not screw things up, and then rely on their defense to be outstanding, that's a formula that can win for them. But another concern about it, though, is looking at the numbers. I mean, according to PFF, he scrambled 9.4% of the time he dropped back. And quarterbacks who scramble are typically not seeing it. Like, it's so there may have been more pass plays called, and I haven't watched the tape, so I can't say for myself. I got to trust this data. So he scrambled a lot. That's a problem to me. He was also pressured on nearly 20% of his dropbacks, which against that team, that's a problem to me, because one of my primary concerns about that team was losing both of their tackles. It's like, I don't know how that offensive line is going to look, but it's the first game. But the problem is they're going into their second game. This will be Kansas's third. So they're a little further along, and we have seen so far in their games against Fresno, and then last week, I can't even remember what FCS team they dog whipped, but it was an FCS team. Like, that's been a very explosive offense to start the season. They have hitting big plays. Jalen Daniels is making big plays, but he's similar to Pribula in that they don't really seem to be all that confident in him dropping back to throw the ball either. So the edge in this game could just come back down to which one of these quarterbacks can complete some passes.
I think Missouri's defensive line, a group that we pointed to in the preseason, that playing at home, you get Jalen Daniels in third and long, obvious passing situations. You take away some of the dynamic aspects that you would get in terms of trying to defend against the run and the pass. Wasn't Kansas one of the best third and long teams in the country last year?
I don't remember. They might have been.
Was it like late and long was, I think, the conversation? We might have talked about it with Bill C in our preseason chat, but that's Jalen Daniels just making stuff happen. You might be able to make stuff happen against some defenses in the Big 12 that you're not going to be able to make happen against Missouri, especially when you're playing on the road. So to me, one thing I'm going to be looking at is whether that Missouri defensive line, which we seem to be in agreement on, is probably the strongest aspect of that team. That might be a group that can win this game by stopping the run, forcing them into third and long, making Kansas a little bit more one-dimensional, because Kansas's offensive line is going to be better when they are not in those obvious passing downs. So that's one thing that I'm really keyed in on, especially with the game being in Columbia.
I would say, too, Jalen Daniels, he is that big game hunter. He loves the big shot.
Yeah.
Make him throw the ball more underneath. Play that kind of shell coverage on the back end, make him be patient, because that's where I think his one deficiency is, sort of the middle to underneath type throws. So make him work the length of the field and see if you get him to force one, because he's going to want to get that big play.
Yeah. Speaking of not really sure what I can make of this, I don't really have a good game grade for SMU after, just completely obliterating East Texas A&M. Baylor, on the other hand, lots lots to take away from the opening loss against Auburn. The game's going to be at SMU. Big sort of statement opportunity for the Mustangs as a college football playoff team from a year ago. Gets their first of 2 shots at a Big 12 team, trying to build up that strength of schedule that could help them if they do find themselves again in an at-large type argument at the end of the year. Baylor has to fix this defense. I know that we don't necessarily look at Kevin Jennings as the running specific quarterback, but man, that boy can still scoot. So, Tom, do you see a path forward for Baylor to be able to shore this thing up, put in the changes that they need to have a better performance?
Yeah, I understand if you're a Baylor fan after what Jackson Arnold did to you last week, why you'd probably be a little bit worried about what Kevin Jennings might do to you with SMU this week. But Baylor was in like an interesting spot in that they kind of had to pick their poison against Auburn because Auburn's got Cam Coleman. They have those receivers. And they really had a choice to make. We could either take away the deep ball and the explosive play in the passing game and force Jackson Arnold to either scramble or, check down, or we could try to stop the run and then maybe get burnt alive, toasted by their receivers. And as far as the answer, Baylor played quarters coverage on 53.6% of its snaps on defense against Auburn, which was the most in the country by far. When they weren't in quarters, they were in cover 2. And that's a lot of zone just to keep the passing game, which also kind of gave Jackson Arnold a lot of running lanes up front. And then he was able to get in the open field and break off plays. I don't think they have to take the same approach against SMU. It's no disrespect to SMU's receivers. They have good ones, but they don't really have Cam Coleman and company. So I would expect you see a more balanced approach from Baylor defensively in this game that allows them to at least slow down the quarterback run game. But that doesn't mean they're going to be effective or it means they're going to succeed because SMU, Kevin Jennings, the Penn State game was horrific. It was awful. It was terrible. It shouldn't skew the entire season that Kevin Jennings had. He's still capable of putting up big games, big numbers, and winning games for SMU. So this is a very interesting matchup to me, and it'll be really interesting to see how the Baylor defense adjusts after last week's game plan.
I think we got a little bit of a shootout on our hands.
I mean, 65.5 certainly suggests that.
Right. But I think this will live up to that. RJ Maryland, I thought it was interesting because I think last year, I'm pretty sure he was listed as a tight end, and now they're just listing him as a wideout. He's a pretty good weapon. He did, he was 3rd on the receiving chart last year. He had 3 catches.
We got
a couple other guys step up. He did go. Is he back? Is he okay?
I was saying he got hurt last year.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
They finished the season without what I believe to be like one of the best weapons that they had on their roster for week 1.
Right. So he's pretty impressive. And I do think this is one where it'll be, can SMU's defense slow down that passing attack? Because you've always been a big Sawyer Robertson fan, Tom, and I think the whole country got to see what he could do against a pretty good Auburn team. He is more than capable of putting that team on his back. So I'm kind of curious to see what SMU does defensively to slow down that pass game.
I'll also say, this is a huge weekend for the Big 12 in general.
Because week 1 didn't go well.
Season, yeah.
Yeah, because and Big 12 fans were really mad at me for what I wrote on Saturday night, but I said that after the early results of the weekend, they were looking like a 1-bid league because they had been 1-3 in games against Power 4 competition. That moved to 2-3 on Monday night. But the 2 wins so far have been UCLA and North Carolina, 2 teams who look like teams who may not be reaching bowls this year. So to get a win over SMU this weekend would be huge. To get a win over Iowa would be huge. If they could somehow beat Oregon, which, okay, we'll just skip that one. But if Kansas can beat Mizzou, they have a chance to really kind of salvage what was a very slow start, because the only way this conference is going to start getting respect from people in polls and people in the college football playoff selection committee is for them to start winning these games with regularity. And until they do, you're just going to have to deal with the reputation that you have.
We had a question from Brett in the chat.
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, all right, now let's go outside the scheme. Forget your quarters coverage. I just want to go narrative here. If Baylor loses and falls to 0-2, is Dave Aranda back on the hot seat?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. No,
yes.
totally, yeah.
No brainer. Starting the season 0-2, and considering SMU, I think they probably looked down on that program. They were in the playoffs last year. This is a huge, huge game for Dave Aranda.
I would think he'd be on the hot seat with a certain segment of fans, But the fact of the matter is you're 0-2 and that sucks, but you haven't lost a conference game yet. Like
Right.
all of your goals are still on the table.
But if you have made it a statement that I am putting my hands on the defense, the thing that made me a head coaching candidate, and the defense, because I'll tell you what, I don't see Baylor losing this game 24-21. Like if Baylor loses this game and they fall to 0-2, it's probably, like you mentioned, Danny, another shootout. That even if Sawyer Robertson has a big game, the sentiment will come back to, well, look what's happened in our first 2 games with that defense that brings back a ton of experience and production and starts from last season. And in the middle of last season, things were looking dicey before they roll off 6 straight wins to close out the regular season. So vibes were very different because of the way they closed. Another slow start, though, would definitely warm up the seat, I would imagine. It's a very good question, Brett. All right. Coming up on the other side, a lot more interesting, even like sneaky storylines to pick apart, great matchups and more. We'll continue with our breakdowns of week 2 and more next.
The crowd loves champions. Gladiator 2 is an epic spectacle. To amuse you is my only wish.
The glory is yours, not mine.
Very good. Gladiator 2, rated R, now streaming on Paramount Plus.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, continuing big game breakdowns into our mid-game breakdowns. Still games that, especially early in the season, so much intrigue. Curious about this one because we mentioned USF in the poll assassin earlier, and where they were or were not getting respect. They're going to be heading to the Swamp to take on Florida. Now, Florida played one of the worst FCS teams that there are. The Long Island Sharks, bless their hearts. They couldn't really do much. So I don't
Long Island Guppies.
I don't have the most critical Florida analysis was, hey, I know the score looked great, but there's some stuff to clean up. I know the stats look good, but there's some things that we could do better. The least critical Florida analysis was, yes, this is everything we wanted. Natty coming our way. Let's go. What's in the middle? What are we going to get here as South Florida goes to play the Gators?
Was interesting to me. Our friend listener Parker Fleming, he always tweets after the week like the "how bad did your team get beat" graphic,
right?
Which is just based on success rate. It's like, did you really outperform them, or did you get a little lucky? Do you know which team got outperformed the most in a win as far as success rate last week was?
The Bulls.
Yeah, South Florida, which to my eyes, based on what I saw in that game, was very surprising to me. Like, I wouldn't have been shocked if Boise had a higher success rate based on down-to-down stuff, but I was shocked at the gap. So obviously the mistakes Boise made really shot them in the foot in that spot. So
I was going to say, that was when I first saw that too, Tom. I thought what came to my head was finishing drives.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that, USF hit on a couple big plays and Boise did a horrible job finishing drives, because in addition to luck or turnovers, a big part that can skew final score to the net success rate. And again, like Parker Fleming, Stats of War on Twitter, good friend, awesome follow. Be sure to check out all of his work. That's another thing too that I always come back to. One reason why down to down you might be better than the scoreboard says is you just, when the field gets small and you need big plays, you just can't punch it in for a touchdown.
Yeah, so I went and I looked it up. South Florida's success rate on offense was 32.8% in that game. That ranks 116th. And to your point, though, they were extremely explosive. They had overall explosive play rate of 17%, which ranked 20th. And a new little one I do called nuclear rate, which just is the amount of 40-yard plus plays that you had, was 5.66%, which ranks 4th nationally. So, they were very boom or bust. I don't think they can rely on that against Florida. I know Florida played on air against Long Island last week, but talent-wise, I feel like the Gators are going to be better than South Florida at pretty much every single spot, even at quarterback, because as good as I think Byron Brown is, I still think DJ Lagway is a better player. So It's going to be really interesting to see what this Bulls offense is actually capable of doing if they can do the little things instead of just hitting the home runs, because they're going to have to. Like, you can't rely on just hitting 40-yard touchdown after 40-yard touchdown against this Florida defense. Although maybe you can. Who knows? It is college football.
I think it was probably, and Chip, you mentioned it, Maddox Matson did hit some big plays, which I think should be very concerning considering you're going against DJ Lagway, who also another one kind of like Jalen Daniels. He loves to hit the big plays, and to see some weapons start to come to the forefront. I mean, a lot was made out of the catch down in Miami, but Vernell Brown's catch was maybe just as impressive the way he did it. Maybe it wasn't in traffic. That's where you give him the edge. But I do think this game will be physical. I think USF's defense was the takeaway for me. I knew about Byron Brown. I know what he's capable of doing. That defense was flying around. I thought in the second half specifically, yeah, you had a little bit more of a one-dimensional team trying to throw the football, but I thought that defense was sort of the story coming away for me for that game. So I think Florida better be ready for a physical game. I talked to Alex Golesh this morning. He's like, hey, I think we're going to have a fourth quarter game on our hands. And the longer you let them hang around, the more their confidence builds. Yours starts to shake a little bit. So we'll see, because they've played really well in these spots before against Miami, against Alabama, at other times throughout the last 3 or 4 years. Those players, a lot of them might have wanted to play at Florida. They play a little chip on their shoulder. This will be a good test for Florida.
I agree with that one. A couple others. We got a little Mississippi State, Arizona State, Vanderbilt-Virginia Tech, Ole Miss at Kentucky, or something that I might have overlooked scanning. DK, what stands out to you as something that's particularly intriguing that you want to dig in on?
Another Big 12 game, Arizona State going to Mississippi State. I think this game is really, really interesting. The way it unfolded last year, Arizona State completely dominated in the run game last season. I think there was like 300 plus yards, and they held Mississippi State to about 50 last season. Sam Leavitt, they looked good in their week 1 game, but this is a much different challenge for them. Blake Shapen's healthy, which he was last year too, but I just think this is going to be, of all the Big 12 matchups, because this is supposed to be one, kind of like Baylor, that's supposed to be a front runner against one of the worst in the SEC. This one feels like a must-win for the Big 12 and for Arizona State. If they were complaining about where their positioning was last year, it's a big one.
Listen, who'd Mississippi State play last week? They played Southern Miss. And
yeah,
I got to say, I don't think they're good, but they looked better against Southern Miss than anything I really recall seeing from them last year. So that's a good sign. The offense looked a little crisper. So this is going to be a little tougher test, I think, than what Arizona State had last year, especially now that they have to come to Starkville for the game. And for Arizona State, they played Northern Arizona. They won 38-19. Now, I have not jumped into the all 22 for this one to break it down. I have no idea what Arizona State was doing defensively in this game. They might have just been in the same damn zone coverage the entire game, and Northern Arizona just kind of took advantage of it. But they had a success rate of 61.3% on defense, which ranks 72nd nationally after playing Northern Arizona. And more concerning to me, they gave up an explosive play 11.27% of the time, which ranks 90th. And a lot of that, they were very, very tough stopping them on the ground. Now, some of that I have to assume, just based on looking at it and what you see, was by design. They were like, all right, go ahead and run the ball. You're not going to be able to throw it on us, and we're just going to go home and beat you. But if there are concerns, like if there's any signal to the noise of what I'm seeing in the numbers for Arizona State's defense last week, that could be a game to keep an eye on, because you might be surprised by the result.
We, Danny, you and I were both on Kanye Udo as a big replacement for Cam Scatterbo. 2 carries, 19 yards, 1 catch in this game. Leading rusher was Sam Leavitt in this game. 2 touchdowns on the ground, 94 rushing yards, 331. So 4 total touchdowns, a whole bunch of yards. Sam Leavitt hero ball against the FCS team.
Well, it's the combo. It's Sam Leavitt, Jordan Tyson hero ball.
Jordan Tyson, yeah, was.
But he just, and that's where I think, because Kyson Brown was leading back, and he was also the second leading receiver. Like, if you can take away Jordan Tyson and no other receiver steps up, which last year Cam Scatterbo was the second leading receiver for this team. Like somebody else, and they were fine without him in the playoffs. I know they played good without him and other guys stepped up, but I do think that Levy's defense, I think that'll be one of their priorities is take away Jordan Tyson. Everybody else, you've got to do it. And Sam Levitt, I didn't know he had that much speed. I mean, he looked fast on that 52-yard touchdown run that he had, but I think this is a tricky spot for Arizona State. Even Kenny Dillingham throughout camp, he's been kind of saying some stuff about his squad. He doesn't like the way they're practicing. He's been a little bit upset. I'm sure he's trying to light a spark on it. Everybody's been telling him how good they are all offseason. But I think this is a concerning spot for Arizona State.
Yeah, to your point about Jordan Tyson, 17 targets. Yeah. I mean, in some of these games against FCS teams, we see Tom, like you were talking about Illinois, we're trying to get as many people involved as possible. Why are you spamming your best player over and over and over again against Northern Arizona? Again, we could be proven wrong. It is very difficult to take something and feel good about using an FCS result and spinning it forward. After all, Oregon was 24-14 against Idaho and then went 13-0 and won the Big Ten. So,
and so your thing about Kanye Udo, I don't know if he is supposed to be the feature back. I know a lot of Arizona State people had said he's a nice addition, but we have some really good backs on our team already. Okay. So I'll be interested to see what kind of role he starts to fill. And if maybe they just go running back by committee, which is, a good option to have.
And let us not overlook that this is going to be in Starkville.
Yeah. Like, did you see him out there with the cowbells at practice? Arizona State. I'm like, oh boy.
It's not quite
a little more than 3 cowbells. Those will have your ears ringing. Have you guys been to a game in Starkville?
No,
but I would love to go.
I called a game there one time. I think I've called a couple games there. Your ears will be ringing like by the time the game is over. It is nonstop and it is loud.
Like the I was standing next to the speaker at the concert, kind of just like nonstop. Yeah. I've got it on the siren watch, man. Arizona State better show up and better bring something, because I'm with you, Tom. There was a moment, a like brief moment in time where that Mississippi State Southern Miss game, what was it, 10-10?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh, Charles Huff and his Marshall team that he transported to Hattiesburg, are they going to do it? And there was a difference in speed and athleticism and size. And when the physics took over, it was like, okay, Mississippi State pulled away with a lot of explosive plays, defensive stops. I mean, I'm with you, Tom. I came out of that one being like, okay, I should not bury Mississippi State. This is a team that can do some damage to somebody.
There is some big. You mentioned, Danny, about going to Starkville, and this is from Kenny himself. There is some controversy about going to Starkville because apparently, according to Kenny, there's not like a hotel within 90 minutes of the stadium, and Mississippi State fans are pretty upset about that. They're saying there's plenty of hotels.
Interesting.
So they're taking it as a shot at Starkville, the home of Cover 3 podcast quarterback Luke Altmaier, and we will not stand for that.
Oh,
everybody's so sensitive. Can we just lay off? I mean, geez, can we just relax?
And that's when I took it personally. We are in the era of personal slights. Okay, Vanderbilt at Virginia Tech. You want to talk about a don't fall to 0-2 moment? Brent Pry, don't lose again. No. I think this is a pressure-packed game for the Hokies. I hope I'm not just going. I mean, Tom, in my total ACC glasses or ACC focused on this, I think Vanderbilt's probably the better team, and I think that for Virginia Tech, given how poor Kyron Drones played and how poor that offense looked, I think that they really need to be able to have a strong bounce back if they're going to avoid this thing getting a little bit toxic.
I mean, we are at risk of a little too much recency bias because, I mean, Vandy played Charleston Southern last week. So there's not a whole lot to take from it. But if you just based it off of what we saw from Vanderbilt last year, yeah, I think there's a very strong argument to make that Vanderbilt's the better team in this game. I mean, they did beat Virginia Tech last year. But also, I don't want to put too much stock in the Hokies really not looking great against what could be a top, could be a top 20-ish team this year. So, yes, we talked about it after on the reaction show, and just Kyron Drones just did not show any kind of improvement to me. And I think that's a huge problem for this offense. They're going to have to run the ball effectively here against Vandy. You would hope that returning home and not being at a neutral site and being in front of your home crowd for the first time this, year, the home opener, gives them some energy to help them get off to a good start. But you can also wonder, considering the hot seatish talk around Brent Pry all off season, then you start your year and you lose that game on Sunday. It's like, what will the vibe be in that stadium to open it? Like, will it be as juiced as it could have been if you at least played better or won the game last week? I don't know. It is a very, very interesting spot this weekend where I do feel like there could be serious ramifications if Virginia Tech loses. Yes.
I still feel like they played pretty good defensively.
Yeah.
They were in the game for 3 quarters. You get a punt return goes against you, and then that's where you do not want to be as Kyron Drones, having to throw the ball a lot from behind. Like, then that's where you get into real trouble. But I actually was pretty impressed with the personnel stacking up against South Carolina. But you guys are 100% right. This is a must-win game for Brent Pry. I think the vibes will be high. You'll see the crowd. You'll see Lane Stadium packed. You'll get the run out. But, oh, boy, if that offense struggles early. Again, I had talked all about Lenora Sellers breaking in a new offensive coordinator. Remember, Kyron Drones is too. So you better see. We talked earlier in the show about making that big jump from week 1 to week 2. They need offensively to take that big step. But I do think Vanderbilt's defense will not be as challenging as South Carolina's defense.
That's fair. I mean, still good.
Yeah.
When somebody in the tailgate said that this line is stinky, I wouldn't say stinky. I mean, minus 1.5 in Lane Stadium says that Vanderbilt is a slightly higher rated team.
Yeah, and it is.
And it is. So a lot of pressure. And look, I'll tell you, Brent Pry's record in 1-score games is horrendous.
Yeah.
I mean, if let this be a 1-score game and come up on the losing end, talk about stacking narratives. That's right up there with it.
And to me, like, that is one of those stats where the songs, when it goes over the course of a long track record, not just one season.
Yeah, 4 years kind of stuff.
Yeah, like that. You talk, like, there's a lot of coaching stuff that none of us will ever understand. Like, fans, we're not. You can't really get us into the scheme and how things work or what the intention was. Blah blah blah. But typically, when you're overperforming or underperforming in close games, that's a good indicator of coaching.
Yep. It looks like either 1-11 or 1-12.
Right.
Score games.
That's not good. I mean, that's Scott Frosty in.
Yeah. Tough scene there. Any other ones that I had Ole Miss at Kentucky out there. I've only got that in there for revenge game angle. Remember Kentucky? Right. Yeah, Kentucky beats Ole Miss in Oxford last year, but it's a whole brand new Kentucky team. Man,
I just wonder if Kentucky can make that game as gross as last year's was. Like, can they make this ugly? Can they just stay committed to run? Because I don't picture Zach Calzada putting up a lot of points against Ole Miss's defense. And then you just hope Austin Simmons' first road game in the SEC, he struggles somewhat. I thought he looked really good. I think Ole Miss is going to house him.
Never been there, so I can't speak on it. And you can't really tell on TV, which might be speaking on it. How's the environment for a home Kentucky football game? Is that like a really tough place? I know neither of you have ever played there, but
I called a game there, and I was maybe not so much the crowd. I was surprised the facilities were so nice because it's a basketball school. But yeah, I don't remember it being like a ruckus environment. But I think they're not bad.
I mean, there's some diehards. I mean, that is the most hipster thing that you can be. Like, no. Kentucky football is my number one priority. That's that. Like, I don't have tickets to Rupp. Are you kidding? Kroger Field, baby, the big checkout line. That's where I've got my season tickets. Great one from the tailgate. JMU-Louisville, sneaky game.
I hope not.
I've got it as a learn something Saturday. I've got, because nothing that I could really take away from Louisville in week 1, but James Madison's good enough to be able to make Louisville uncomfortable and have to do things that we can learn a little bit more about. Make Miller Moss go to his second read and be able to see how that offense is functioning. What I did see, DK, out of Louisville's week 1, Isaac Brown does not look like he's missed a beat. That is a fun running back. And then, yes, Joey, if JMU wants to really leave a mark in terms of any college football playoff spots, this is the one right here.
I mentioned one more game just so we don't give people an aneurysm.
Of course.
Because I did see a lot of angry tweets about this from yesterday's show. Wanted to know how we could leave Boston College versus Michigan State out of our Big Ten big game breakdowns.
I had Aiden Childs as a
but we didn't break down the game, and they're mad about it. Sparty won a game this last week. They think they're back, so we got to talk about this game.
I mean, how deep are we going? We're going deep cuts. This is definitely not big game breakdown. But have you guys seen the point spread in Virginia at NC State?
No, what's it at?
NC State is a 2.5-point home favorite against Virginia. Talk about it early, and the way it looked against East Carolina, needing that fourth quarter goal line stand to get the win there in a game that you were saying you were going to beat the bleep out of them. It's becoming must-win time early for Dave Dorn and the NC State Wolfpack. That's an interesting game at noon.
I will say I really like Justin Jolly. I really like Hollywood Smothers. CJ Bailey is a roller coaster.
Yeah, see, because he looked great early.
Oh, he is
they were going to
roller coaster. That is a whoopsie daisy. That guy's going to be in those charts all season long.
Virginia, you want to talk about Parker's did we get beat that bad? Virginia's net success rate against Coastal Carolina was also one of the biggest beatdowns, kind of on the tail end. And look, Coastal Carolina lost their quarterback like a week and a half ago. I don't think Coastal Carolina is going to be bringing back the glory of those like 2020, 2021 seasons. I don't think that's a team that's competing for a Sun Belt title whatsoever. But Virginia, with all that new talent, and Chandler Morris got a little bit shaken up, but he has been cleared. He's ready to go. I know we heard that from Tony Elliott earlier this week. Yeah, Virginia is better than I think most people realize. And that line is small because Virginia can come into Raleigh and win that football game. Because you know what Dave's got? Dave's got a little bit of Cristobal to him where you jump out to that lead and even your own fans are like, oh, God. Oh, man. What are we going to do with this lead right now? So it's almost like if I'm an NC State fan, I would rather have a back and forth game where CJ has to cut it loose and just be able to play free rather than you'll have to worry about protecting a lead coming down the stretch. Anything else? All right. So Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. It's the best time of the week. We dig in on our best bets for week 2, all of our locks for the week and our moneyline sprinkles. Come and hang out. You bring likes, we give you locks. We give you locks, we move lines. So it pays to watch live. You hang out so that you can make sure that you get the best number. And you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fornelli. You can follow him at Danny Kanell. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
See ya.